Danmachi Season 4 Part 2 Episode 2, and I'm recording this with a new microphone, so if it sounds good then I hope it is actually really good, and if it sounds bad then I will try to improve it somehow. But yeah, just a heads up because I am actually recording with a new mic and with new settings, so I don't know how it will sound. But yeah, getting into the episode now. This episode was even better than I expected it was going to be, because going by the first episode, not too many things happened. I mean, it was still a great episode, the first episode, a lot of things happened. But yeah, I guess you can say the hype of being the first episode was what carried the first episode, because maybe if it had been an other episode, the second, third, or fourth, it may not have been that interesting. Again, it was not bad or anything, but compared to this second episode was really great. And finally, we got to see Ryu, we got to see Bell actually take the spotlight, because even in part one of the fourth season, we didn't have that much of Ryu and Bell, in the deep floors, because I mean, the part one ended with that, with them in the deep floors. But even when part one ended, when they were in the deep floors, that was just it. We didn't get any more than that, just them in the deep floors, and then it ended, which of course was a great cliffhanger, but I wanted to see them more in the deep floors. And finally this episode gave us that, because like I said, the part one and even the first episode, we didn't get really that much from them too, and this episode finally delivered us what we all wanted, which was basically seeing them surviving the deep floors. It is just a starter, of course, because they haven't really, I guess you can say, been in the deep floors that much, or in the main part of the deep floors that much. They're just basically in the entrance and fighting a couple of monsters. It's basically just a warm-up. All the fights that we saw in this episode was just basically the anime trying to tell us that, oh well, this is just a warm-up, and you can see already that them two are actually struggling. So imagine what will happen when, they fight even stronger monsters. So yeah, that is basically what the episode wanted to do. Basically tell us that, well, the stakes are really high in the deep floors. We already knew, of course, that the stakes were really high in the deep floors, but we didn't really know how much high they were, and this episode was just that. We see Bale, this powerful adventure level 4, one of the top level 4s, never struggles or almost never struggles with any monster. We saw that in part 1, him showing off his fighting abilities and all that, and this episode is the contrast to that, because we see that in the deep floors, Ryu and him are basically almost dead weight. They're not really there. I mean, they can still defend themselves. We saw that in this episode. We saw that when he was fighting the, what is it called? The black sheep, the skull sheep, something like that. Yeah, we saw that. Yeah, I mean, he can defend himself, and he can, I guess you can say, defeat one skull sheep, but I don't know if it will be the same for other monsters down there in the deep floors, because I would dare to say that this is an average monster, a typical monster of the deep floors, because it is the first monster they encounter after all. If you exclude the Juggernaut, of course, because I mean, he's not really part of the deep floors. But yeah, that is basically what we saw from Bell and from Ryu. We saw that Bell was basically dead if Ryu didn't actually heal him. So yeah, in hindsight, it was actually a good thing she did. She was told by Bell to heal herself, but what she did was actually heal basically Bell. She didn't do it because she knew that Bell was going to be attacked, but because she thought she was dead weight and she wanted just basically to die there. But I mean, even though she did it for that reason, at the end of the day, it was still a good decision, because if not for that, maybe Bale was going to die there, because he didn't have the strength to actually fight the school sheep. So yeah, and we actually see how their scene ended in this episode by them two basically going to this room and meeting a couple of Avengers that basically died there. They were basically just their skeletons. And yeah, I already knew that when Bale saw the lamp lighting up, I already knew that there was something bad going to happen. I already knew that it was not as happy as Bale was thinking, that they were going to get help from Avengers. And yeah, Bale basically got mine down because he fired a couple of fireballs, fire shots at the school ship that were coming for him. And yeah, basically he was all paranoid. He was basically having a mental breakdown, and Ryu was there to basically snap him out of it, because if not for her, maybe who knows what would have happened to him. So yeah, we see how Ryu basically tells him that yeah, they can still survive, and that yeah, they can still make it alive. Of course, they have to make a strategy. They cannot just fight forever. They have to take breaks. So yeah, it is actually kind of weird and kind of, surprising how at the start of the episode it was actually Belle, cheering up Ryu, telling her that she was not a dead weight and she was actually helpful. In the second part of the episode, it was all the opposite. It was actually Ryu telling Belle that no, you can actually fight, that we can still get out of here. Don't basically give yourself for dead. So yeah, we see the dynamic of this episode on how it started and how it ended, which is actually something that I actually appreciated a lot. So yeah, actually good to see that happening in the episode. And when they were actually going to take the break, or I should say when Belle was going to take the break, we actually see that Ryu is actually suffering a lot. She's not demonstrating it, but yeah, she's actually suffering a lot. You can see her sweating and basically wondering if she can survive those 5 minutes. So yeah, we see her in this episode be this tough character after she gets her act pulled together, but at the same time we see that, well, yeah, I mean, she's strong and she's very tough, but she's actually suffering when you actually see it in the episode. So I wonder if she can actually survive those 5 minutes. I think she will, and it is actually pretty funny when you think about it that only 5 minutes is what Belle has to rest, which is actually kind of surprising and kind of shocking to think, because I mean 5 minutes is not a lot, but that is basically this spawn rate, if you can call it like that, for monsters down there in the deep floor. So yeah, they basically have to rest for 5 minutes. One has to fight and then the other basically has to rest and then fight. So yeah, they're in a dire situation down there. I already knew that it was going to be really bad, but I mean, this episode actually demonstrated that it was even worse than I thought. And like I said at the beginning, this is just the story. We haven't seen actually how tough the deep floors are. This is just a little taste. This is just the beginning of the deep floors. There's still a lot to come. I wonder if they will make it out alive. If I were to guess, I would say yes, of course, because I mean, Belle is the main protagonist after all. It will be actually really surprising if someone died, especially Ryu. I don't think that will happen, but yeah, it will be actually surprising if that happened. The other part of the episode was basically focused around the main party trying to fight the floor boss, which they were actually doing a great job. I actually thought that it was too good to be true, that they were actually fighting the floor boss and that they were going to defeat it. Yeah, something bad was going to happen. And yeah, I mean, that happened too. I said that when Belle saw the lamplight, I said that basically something bad was going to happen. Well, I actually thought the same for the main party when they were fighting the floor boss. I thought that everything was going too smooth, that everything was going too well, and yeah, something bad had to happen. And basically, I don't know if a couple of people died, but I mean, we see basically Haruhime get trapped by the flames. We also see Mikoto get, I guess you can say, bit by a couple of fish, piranhas. I don't know what they are exactly. But yeah, she's basically sunk down there in the ocean or in the water. And yeah, we see a lot of people getting hurt. We see how Aisha and all the other guys are basically really angry at the floor boss. And yeah, I wonder where that will go now, because I guess I would say that probably some help will come from the surface, because this episode had that. This episode for the first time, well, basically gave us a demonstration that, well, the people on the surface now actually know that the Hestia Familia is in trouble. Before this episode, we didn't have that. Nobody knew that basically the Hestia Familia was struggling down there. So now, finally, people on the surface know that the Hestia Familia is struggling down there. They know that they are in trouble. So yeah, I would say that maybe help is going to come for them, but who knows? I mean, a lot of things can happen in this anime. So trying to predict exactly what exactly is going to happen in the next coming episodes is really hard. I try to do my best job, of course, but I mean, it is not always the case that I'm going to be right. In fact, most of the cases I'm wrong when I speculate about things, but I mean, that is the beauty, I guess you can say, of reviewing animes, that you can speculate and you can imagine a lot of things, and basically when the episode comes out, it proves you wrong and it surprises you, which again, it is actually a good thing. So yeah, I think I said pretty much everything that I wanted to say about this episode. A lot of action in this episode, like I said at the beginning. So many things happening, so many tense moments, so many dire situations, and in general the episode felt really good to watch. Definitely one of those episodes that you don't want to look away, because you will miss something probably if you look away. So yeah, and like I said at the beginning, I'm recording with a new mic. I'm also recording with new settings, so I don't know how I will sound, if I will sound robotic, if I will sound good. I mean, in general, I just want to sound a little bit better than what I was recording with, but who knows, maybe this is actually worse. If it is actually worse, I will try to make it better, and if it's actually acceptable, then I will just keep it like that. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed my review, and I guess I'll see you all in the next episode review.